Testing 1, 2. All right. Wow. That was a quick connect. I wasn't expecting to be live that fast. So, good morning, everybody. So, this post actually came from a conversation with a friend. And I think it's something that each and every person can relate to. Because sometimes we tend to use things to distract us from life, things to try to quiet that noise in our mind. But when we're using something to quiet that noise, a lot of time, exactly that, it's a distraction. We're using something to try to drown out that noise or at least like quiet it for a moment. And sometimes it could be at the cost of living a more fulfilling life. It's going somewhere. Just follow me, and I promise it all makes sense. So this one is called Dull Boy. Hi, guys. My name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast One Life. Dull Boy. When you work, is your work like a meditation? Do you use your work as a way of distracting you from life? And when I use the term distract you from life, meaning if I were to take away the work that you were doing for a period of time, say a week, would your mind start to go crazy? Would you literally start to, in a way, like panic? Because you wouldn't know what to do with yourself. I am willing to bet that the majority of the people listening to this, in some level, have experienced this. This could be that frantic need to constantly be doing something and not settle down, not relax. I know for sure that I've experienced it. But what exactly is that you're experiencing? It's this feeling that, like, if you're not doing something, you're wasting time. So if you're going to live life that has multiple layers, that has complexity, that has passion, you kind of have to become aware of where in your life you're not allowing yourself to experience new things, or at the very least take downtime, because everyone needs to recharge their batteries. So let's get real with ourselves right now. Where are you in your life? Are you the type of person who, like, if there's any downtime, you don't know what to do? You start fidgeting, you start cleaning, you start doing something. Or maybe you are the type of person who, if someone gives you a week off, you're like, you know what? I am out of here. And you know how to disconnect. I want you to just kind of see, where do you fall in between those two extremes? Maybe there's a middle extreme too, but where do you fall? And then if you can't get into that relaxation mode, what is the reason? Like, why? Ask yourself the question, why? Is it because your mind is too noisy? Is it because if you're not doing something, you don't feel productive? And then lastly, what is the cost that this pattern is going to have on your life if you don't stop it? If you're constantly going, you're never really giving your body a chance to recharge, your body a chance to relax. There's always this underlying state of tension. I just did a podcast yesterday about it. And if we want to, one, enjoy life, if we want to become aware to these callings, if you so to speak, from a greater good, a higher power, then we need to learn how to relax those muscles. We need to take some time. But for the sake of this podcast here, I'm not really going into relaxing for that reason. The reason I'm here right now is saying that if you're constantly working, if you're not taking time for yourself to enjoy open yourself to new experiences, enjoy some simple pleasures of life, then you're missing out on life. I was on a call with my friend Fatih. I did a little background on the story. I met Fatih when we were in Miami in 2021. In Miami, we were actually going to move in together, but it ended up being very, very difficult because at the time, so many people were moving in, and it was kind of like trying to find an apartment in New York City. If you have ever tried to move to New York City, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I remember trying to move to New York City. I looked for a full year, and the apartment I wanted always eluded me. So Fanti he does woodwork and he's been working like crazy. He always has a job open. And we had spoken, so Fatih's from Turkey and my background is Italian. So we always romance about each other's cultures. He's like, he loves Italian food, especially Italian desserts. And I love like the Turkish culture to me is just so mysterious. And there's so much history in there that I want to learn about. So we always planned about going to in showing each other each other's culture. I had a call with him yesterday, and I was telling him how I'm planning an upcoming trip to Italy this November, and how that I look forward to the day when I could actually take him and show him like all the beautiful things about Italy, because I know he's going to fall in love, especially with food. And he was telling me, he's like, my friend, he's like, I love my work. He's like, I'm always busy. I love my work. And then he said, I don't know if I'm not working. He said something along like his mind starts to go into overdrive. So what he's saying is that his mind gets noisy, right? When he's working, it's similar to a meditation, which is awesome, right? That's what coffee was for me. When I'm literally pulling shots of espresso, I am in that espresso, not figuratively speaking. I am in that espresso, and my 100% of my focus is going there, and it's like meditation. But if I'm using that as a way to distract me from the noise that's in my mind, then that could be an issue, right? Because we have to train the mind not to say, okay, oh, I'm feeling this, let me go this, because that's a distraction. And going into distractions is not the point of this podcast. The point of this podcast is to realize what he is going to be missing out on as a result of that focus, a result of just using his work to take that noise to quiet that noisy environment. So he was telling me, he's like, you know what? I need help. I need help to have more of these experiences. And I thought about that for a second. I said, well, one, if he doesn't, if someone always goes to the work and makes work their life, eventually you start to forget what you're passionate about. You start to forget what your interests are. You start to forget yourself. I remember I was at a seminar with a bunch of different coaches, and I was talking, this is the time I was starting to build the One Life concept. And I was talking to my friend Nancy, and her business was doing phenomenal. Like I can't remember like her growth figures, but it was like probably double-digit growth. Her business was thriving. But then she said to me, she goes, you know what? I don't know what I like. I was like, well, what do you mean you don't know what you like? She's like, I don't know what I like. She's like, all I do is work. And at the time, that made me sad. But then I realized shortly after that, I had kind of put all my eggs in one basket, and I was just kind of moving forward just with my business. And I actually felt that same sensation. Like, I'm like, well, what do I like? What do I do? Whenever you feel like that, literally do something. Just try something new. And life is not, life is always kind of in flux, right? Sometimes you're going to put more, there's no such thing as balance, right? Sometimes you put more effort towards your business. Sometimes you put more effort towards leisurely activities. It's always this state of flux, right? It's kind of like you realize that you've been putting a little bit too much time into work, and you're like, you know what? I need to kind of pull things back a little bit because I feel off balance. And it's always this kind of rebalancing. But we have to become conscious that there is an off balance there. Because if you're only putting all your efforts into one thing, and it doesn't have to be work. If you're only putting efforts into travel, right? And you're missing out on something else. I mean, building a career or building, spending time with friends, building friendship. Who knows what it is? What I'm trying to say is that there's always an offset to whatever you're doing. But not everybody realizes that. And as a result, you get at some point down your life and you realize I just don't have the energy to. Yeah, I would love to travel, but just don't have the energy to do it. Or I'd love to go play soccer, but I'm afraid I'm going to break something. Right? You do not want to go there. So the key is to start to plan these things into your life. Right? Fatih, if you're listening, this is for you. You have to plan these things into your life because the new year is coming up. Right? Most people, what do you do for your New Year's? Do you set goals? And if you do set goals, how detailed, or should I say vague, are they? I'm guilty of this sometimes, right? There was a year where I was actually super crystal clear, and I did a charity. I did like all the trips I wanted to plan. I did. And there were years that I didn't do that, and as a result, I didn't get much of anything. Well, I mean, I've gotten things, but it wasn't planned. What I'm trying to say is, when you have the focus, when you have that outcome outlined, all of a sudden now the work you have that balance, right? Because you're like, all right, well, I have the trip planned in June for 2 weeks in Italy. Awesome. Well, I know I'm going to work my butt off until then, and I know that I deserve this break. And then there's going to be many other things that you could plan within that. So in closing, what is the tidbit of information? What do I want you to walk away with as a result of listening to this today? I want you to become aware of where are you putting your time, and maybe you need to do that, a little bit of that balancing. You say, well, yeah, I'm always maybe you're always just thinking about something, and as a result, you're constantly running through your mind. You're constantly feeling busy, and you don't get anything done. That could be your body saying, you know what? Let me take a step back. Let me start to just do something pleasurable, something that I enjoy. And do that. Or maybe you're again, that you're using work as a distraction. And if you don't meditate, I highly recommend meditation because you shouldn't have to run away to something in order to drown out those voices in your head. Everyone has them, right? If you don't think you have them, then you got another thing coming. Everybody has these voices going on. The key is to distinguish these voices, to realize that you are not your mind, that you are not the voices in your head. When you start to break away from that inner dialogue, then you start to realize why you do all the things you do, and then you can make a new decision now because you have the awareness. So the point of this podcast, again, let's go right back down to the point, is not to put off life. Is not to say, okay, I need to work all the time because this is what makes me feel good. This is what makes me feel sane. The last thing I want you to do is to get to the end of your life and realize that you missed out on doing so many things because you were too busy working, because you were too busy worrying about something, because you were too busy taking care of the family, which is important, but you are important. Making time for yourself is important. How often during the course of your day do you take time, a minute, just to breathe, just to take a moment and observe your surroundings? I'm willing to bet that the majority of you guys listening to this do not. If you do, thumbs up. If I'm honest with you, I've been more conscious of it just because I've been putting my attention there, but in the past, I didn't do that at all. But it is worth doing, right? Because it's your life. You only have this moment, right? So it's worth taking the moment to appreciate it. If you didn't do all the travels, all those things, appreciate the moment with that cup of coffee. Hopefully it's Rouse. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. This wasn't really the questions, right? It was more of just an inspiration because I know how often I've fallen in the trap, and I know it's very common. But the life that you were meant to live depends on it. It depends on you taking the reins. It depends on you being conscious and being conscious of where you're putting your energy. That is all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend. And if you have any questions or would like to comment, you can send me them at donnyraus.com, DonnyRaus.com. Again, DonnyRaus.com. And if you like amazing coffee, visit rouscoffee.com. Use the discount code, all capitals, OneLife, and get 10% off your first order. That is all I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you get one life. Live it. God bless, and I will see you again soon.